On New Year's Eve 2025, as champagne corks popped across the world, Chinese President Xi Jinping declared Taiwan's reunification unstoppable. Just 48 hours earlier, his military had wrapped up Justice Mission 2025, the largest blockade rehearsal Taiwan has ever witnessed. Chinese naval forces encircled the island, practicing port blockades, cutting supply lines, and simulating the isolation of Taiwan from any external support. To Beijing's strategists, the path seemed clear. The pieces were in place. The military was ready. There was just one problem they hadn't counted on. A small island nation 500 miles south that China had spent years bullying into submission was about to become their biggest nightmare. But to understand how the Philippines became the thorn in China's grand plan, we need to go back to why Taiwan matters so much in the first place. Taiwan isn't just another territorial dispute for China. It's personal, it's legacy, it's everything. When the Chinese Civil War ended in 1949, the defeated nationalist government fled to Taiwan, creating what Beijing sees as an unfinished chapter in China's reunification story. For over 7 decades, the Communist Party has promised the Chinese people that Taiwan would return to the fold. It's baked into their entire political identity, the one China principle that tolerates no deviation. But for Xi Jinping, this goes even deeper. He's made Taiwan reunification his personal mission, his historical legacy. In his mind, he's not just another Chinese leader, he's the one who will finally complete what Mao started. He said it explicitly. Reunification is inevitable, and it will happen on his watch. The problem? Taiwan has no interest in being reunified, and Xi's running out of time. So China started preparing for the unthinkable, a military solution. But what they didn't realize was that their years of aggression against a smaller neighbor were about to create an unexpected obstacle. Before we talk about Taiwan, we need to talk about how China treated the Philippines. From 2020 to 2022, the South China Sea became a hunting ground. Chinese Coast Guard vessels terrorized these waters. They blasted Filipino supply boats with military-grade water cannons. They aimed laser weapons at Filipino sailors, temporarily blinding them. When the Philippines tried to resupply their outpost at Second Thomas Shoal, Chinese ships would swarm them like wolves.
Hold back to Philippines!
In March 2021, over 220 Chinese maritime militia vessels suddenly appeared at Whitsun Reef, deep inside the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. They just sat there, a floating armada, daring Manila to do something about it. The Philippines filed 153 diplomatic protests that year alone. China ignored every single one. China's message was clear. You're small, you're weak, you don't matter. Filipino fishermen were rammed, chased, and blocked from fishing grounds their families had worked for generations. The Philippine military could barely respond. Their navy was a patchwork of World War II-era vessels and a handful of modern ships. They were outgunned, outmanned, and humiliated on a near-daily basis. China thought they had broken the Philippines. They thought Manila would never dare challenge them. But what Beijing's strategists failed to understand was that the Philippines wasn't just another victim in the South China Sea. They were sitting on something far more valuable than fishing grounds. Let me show you something that should terrify Chinese military planners. This is the first island chain. US and allied strategists have called this the front line of Pacific defense. Now look at Luzon, the northernmost major island of the Philippines. It sits at the midpoint of this chain, just 250 miles from Taiwan. Any Chinese invasion force heading to Taiwan has 2 options: go through the Luzon Strait between Taiwan and the Philippines, or take the long way around through the Philippine Sea. Either way, they're within striking distance of Philippine territory. If China tries to blockade Taiwan, cutting off its ports, starving it into submission, they need to control the waters south of Taiwan. That means operating in or near Philippine waters. The Philippines isn't just a bystander in a Taiwan conflict. Geography made them a player, whether they wanted to be or not. Over 150,000 Filipinos work in Taiwan, more than from any other Southeast Asian nation. They're nurses, factory workers, caregivers. If China invades, those are Filipino lives on the line. The Philippines had every reason to care about Taiwan. They just needed to realize it. And in 2022, something shifted. The victim was about to become a strategic player, and China was about to learn a hard lesson about bullying your neighbors. June 2022. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. wins the Philippine presidency and immediately does something his predecessor refused to do. He pivots toward the United States. His first major move? opening up Philippine military bases to American forces under an agreement called EDCA, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. What started as 5 bases quickly expanded to 9. Several of those bases faced north toward Taiwan. Suddenly, American forces had access to positions that could support Taiwan operations, resupply missions, or even anti-ship missile placements within range of Chinese invasion routes. Manila wasn't just playing defense in the South China Sea. They were positioning themselves as a crucial link in Taiwan's defense. Beijing noticed, complained, and threatened. But the Philippines kept moving forward. In 2023, the Philippine military held joint exercises with not just the US, but also Japan and Australia. In 2024, they signed a reciprocal access agreement with Japan, Tokyo's first such agreement with an Asian nation besides Australia. France, Canada, and New Zealand followed with their own defense partnerships. The Philippines was no longer isolated, they were building a coalition. But talking about alliances is one thing. The real transformation was happening in the Philippine military itself, and the speed of that transformation shocked everyone. Let me paint you a picture of the Philippine military in 2020. A navy with barely functional ships, an air force flying Vietnam War-era planes, and a defense budget so small they couldn't even protect their own fishermen from harassment. Fast forward to 2026. The United States announced a $2.5 billion military aid package to the Philippines, spread over 5 years, the largest such commitment in decades. American Typhoon missile systems, mobile launchers capable of firing anti-ship and land attack missiles, had quietly been deployed to northern Luzon for exercises. They were supposed to leave. These systems can hit targets over 1,000 miles away. Do the math. That puts Chinese naval forces operating near Taiwan well within range. The Philippines started buying serious hardware. They acquired the BrahMos supersonic anti-ship missile system from India, one of the fastest missiles in the world. They added more F-A-50 fighter jets from South Korea. They commissioned modern frigates and corvettes to patrol their waters. Japan stepped up too, providing coastal surveillance radar, patrol vessels and training. Australia launched 8 infrastructure projects across 5 Philippine military locations. Even France started conducting freedom of navigation operations with Philippine forces in the South China Sea. The Philippine military, once demoralized and outmatched, started acting like a regional force that mattered. Here's the beautiful irony. China's years of bullying the Philippines didn't break them. It created the political will for this exact military buildup. China created its own problem, and Beijing knows it, because in their most recent military exercises, they revealed just how seriously they're taking the Philippine threat. Justice Mission 2025. China's massive military exercises encircling Taiwan weren't just practice runs for an invasion, they were sending a message. For the first time, Chinese state media explicitly mentioned the drills were designed to deter foreign military intervention. They know the Philippines matters now. The Philippines went from a victim China could ignore to a strategic player China can't invade Taiwan without considering. So what happens next? Because this story is far from over. Xi Jinping called Taiwan reunification unstoppable, but the Philippines might prove him wrong. China now faces a dilemma. They can pressure the Philippines harder, more harassment, more economic coercion, more diplomatic threats. But every time they do, they push Manila closer to Washington, Tokyo, and Canberra. They strengthen the very coalition that's blocking their Taiwan ambitions. But after years of water cannons and bullying, trust is broken. The Philippine public has turned decisively against China. The question isn't whether the Philippines will play a role in a Taiwan crisis. Geography already decided that. The question is whether China's window for taking Taiwan is closing because they spent too many years creating enemies instead of friends. The small country that was supposed to be too weak to matter has become the thorn that might unravel everything. And Beijing, they're just starting to realize what they've done. What do you think? Will the Philippines stop China's Taiwan plans? Let me know in the comments.